Welcome to the Property and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Atkinson.
I'm Matt Skehan.
We'll be fueling your financial future one coffee and property insights at a time.
Helping you navigate the property market like a pro.
Hello, and what a pleasure it is to have your company on the Property and Coffee Podcast, where we're going to be fueling your financial future one coffee and property insights at a time. Today, it's myself, Matt Atkinson, and my co-host, Matt Skehan. We're going to be looking at some property, some news in the property market, looking at a bit of a property suburb profile down in Corio, just outside of Geelong. And as you see, we're going to be spending majority of the episode on that. We don't have a guest in for this episode. We are also going to be breaking down some of the latest CoreLogic chart pack, just to get a bit of a sense of what the trends and themes are going on in the Australian market at the moment. Maddie, let's get into it. We're going to start off with the CoreLogic, have a look at a bit of the data, and pull out some of those insights for our listeners.
Thanks, Matty. So we're going to dive into the numbers. CoreLogic released its latest data chart pack recently. So we love our numbers on the podcast, mate, being the broker here. So dwelling values were up 1.6% over the last 3 months. But interestingly, this is the softest 3 month change we've seen in over a year. So what do you think that it's sort of, this is affected by? What's causing that, I suppose, reduction, slowdown, sort of globally across the board at the moment we're seeing?
No, fair points. And look, it's probably a bit of a classic, supply and demand, call it rebalancing, if you will. We're still seeing values climbing, but obviously the velocity at which they are climbing seems to be slowing down a bit, potentially a bit of an affordability ceiling coming in for some of those price points. And we're also seeing an increase in stock on the market, which looks to be up 22%. Compared to this time last year. So some of those factors probably coming through. And as you said, we obviously in this year, there's a bit of headwinds that we're all sort of seeing.
And I say supply, demand and sentiment, but sentiment drives the market the most. So I think that's because obviously property is really probably pretty simple, but sentiment drives a lot. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of, and people just fear, mate, what do they freeze? They wait.
The news, let's be honest, good news doesn't sell as chaos, and we're seeing a bit of that.
In the business section a couple of weeks ago, Microsoft's going to drop $32 billion in Australia to build data centers, AI, train up people for AI, right? So they see Australia as, with the space we have, but that's sandwiched in the middle, mate, after all the machete attacks and everything else and the dodgy brothers of us politicians. So it was, you sort of got to look past the fear mongering. So again, it's just headwinds, mate, like the fear sells. So negativity is, and we've got a human bias for negative, so it's fun.
That's it. And look, where there are these, if I want to call it headwinds, there also presents opportunities. So part of it's around understanding if you can take advantage of it. Love the opportunities. Just speaking on that, as we talk about opportunities, so looking at the CoreLogic reports and getting a bit specific there, we look at around page 21, which talks through some of the vendor discounts that advocates and people are looking to apply when they're doing purchases. Talk us through a bit around, for someone listening, if they aren't familiar with what that term is, talk us through what a vendor discount is and how we're seeing it play out in the current landscape, potentially around negotiations.
Yeah, it's a good question. And obviously, rising market, there's generally no discount. It's often how high is it going to go, right? And
correct.
Seagulls to a chip, you got social proof. But in this market, and we had a bumper week the other week, we bought about 5 for our clients. And I said to thanks, Matty. And I said to our guys, like, anything that's on the market, there's a reason for it, right? Like given all the headwinds and, it's either it's a divorce, it's debt, it's an upgrade, they have to sell. And unfortunately, like that's, knowledge is power, leverage. And it was true. Each case, there was a reason. Even when an agent said it's the bottom line, there was always a bit more to go, right? Because they sort of needed stuff to. So I think now's the time to be negotiable. So if you're brave enough, if you're ready to act, and I bought my family home at the start of the pandemic, which up until now was the most pessimistic, but I think consumer sentiment's actually lower than ever recorded at the moment, so that's pretty low. You just got to look through the noise a little bit as well, there, Manny. So it's a interesting time. So.
That's it. Good to know we're setting new records as well.
Yeah, good records to break. Yeah, but we're more pessimistic than ever. So yeah. So, Matty, pulling apart that chart pack, I think there was an interesting sort of graph there that showed over the last 40 years, which obviously we've been recording data for. So, but there's been 10 distinct downturns. So, and I think that's really over a period of 3 months where housing prices decline. So I think for the listeners and people tuning in, I think it's good to know that this is, it might feel like uncharted waters, but it's not. It's expected. Property is not linear. Never has been. Humans are not linear. Share market's not linear. So I think there's noise and there's bumps, and and these are sometimes presents you the opportunities to sort of get in when you haven't been able to buy before. You're priced out of that suburb, or I know we've got a number of clients right now who are looking to upgrade, capitalize on this opportunity that they wouldn't have had. As I said, even when I bought my family home, I got a better suburb and a better market because of the downturn, because of the change in sentiment. If I had waited and then, like a lot of people did, they end up buying peak and then they get priced out. So I think if you're waiting for social proof, you're going to pay more. So that's mine.
No, it's fair. And the chart gives us, takes the emotion out of it, shows us those trends you talk about, that it is not something new. 10 downturns in 40 years, let's say one every 4 years on average. Again, not linear, but property markets go back, things have gone up.
Yeah, it's not always smooth sailing, mate. It's white water.
Exactly.
And you sort of just got to ultimately play the long game, right? So
no, it's correct. And let's switch a bit more onto interest rates being a hot topic, big part of the year, and a bit around borrowing trends.
So, Matty, talking about rates. So obviously you can't ignore interest rates these days. It's everywhere. It's on social media. It's on the news. It's in the newspaper. So obviously we've had a few rate increases lately. Where obviously those cuts have been sort of eroded now. I'm a mortgage holder myself, and it's something I'm acutely aware of in the hip pocket. But a question for you, I suppose, are we too late to fix a rate? There's obviously chatter of another rate increase. Like, is there any advice around or how does fixed rates work a bit as well? I think it's still really not very known very well. I know our clients still, it's not what we don't talk about it. We leave it up to the professionals. But what's your 2 cents on that?
Yeah, maybe just at a high level, I might sort of break down the two. So most people would be familiar with the variable rates.
Yep.
Typically, those may change out of cycle when the RBA does make an announcement, which we're seeing recently. You'll tend to find majority of the banks will increase their rates.
Yep.
That's the one people would be most familiar with and hits them in the hip pocket if you're on a variable rate. Whereas, a fixed rate's a bit different. Here in Australia, you might fix anywhere between 1 to 5 years. And typically, look, that doesn't necessarily move as much when the RBA makes an announcement or makes a decision. The banks, don't forget, they're sourcing their capital. It might be from local institutions or potentially overseas markets or bonds. So what they're trying to do is understand what that capital is going to cost them to deploy it into the market, and then they'll be able to set their fixed rates accordingly. So typically you'll see, the fixed and variable, there'll always be a bit of a difference, and they'll be taking a bit of a long-term view in terms of their cost of capital and what they can look to help secure.
What's the differential at the moment, roughly? I know that varies like daily, but what's sort of the...
Well, you might see, it might be a little bit higher than, depending on 1 to 5 or what you're looking at. You'll see there's always going to be a bit of a variance between the different periods and that you go. Typically, we're going to look at Big Four or maybe your sort of Macquarie and ING for some of your sharp fixed rates, and those are a good place to start.
Awesome. Thanks, Matty. So, and what about how people are borrowing? So the traditional method's obviously been the Big Four banks. And I think, I don't know if the fifth biggest lender, I think it's the Bank of Mum and Dad. You'll be seeing that more than I am. But is that still the only way to go, or are we seeing a shift in terms of how people are accessing their capital, their money, obviously particularly with rates increasing, I suppose rate and those sort of things be a bit more sensitive to? Has been a shift yet? Or
Yeah, so look, typically, I think we would previously be seeing a lot where people are coming in, both wage earners, you're putting up your 20% deposit, you're buying a house and you're moving on. Australia's got a huge market which caters to specific types of employments or industries. So we see quite a bit, what's become quite popular is your mid-doc or your alternative lending space. Typically, this might have in years gone by maybe associated a bit more where there's something wrong or with someone's credit profile, but we just find we use it a lot for our working professionals or potentially our business owners or self-employed just ease of use, different ways you can verify income, and you're not waiting for someone's full financials.
Tax returns or BASs.
8 months down the line, you can use up-to-date data, and provided that obviously fits with the lender's policies, you can move on that now. So we're finding a big uptake in that space where people are wanting to action, specifically where you might be a business owner or self-employed, and you've got that data available to you. And people are becoming more strategic, right? So they're looking at these other policies and to see how they can take advantage of some of these lendings and maximize their capacity, where you can see quite a variance, especially in the self-employed space where, it's not uncommon to see borrowing capacity sometimes 1.5, 2 or 3 times versus normal, depending on the way of income being verified.
It's good to know, Matty. I always say property is a game of finance. So again, it's important to have good people around you, good advisors, get good advice, because, if you're a business owner or a professional, you don't have time to do this. You don't know these things. So get someone to do the legwork for you and be your expert. So
100%. Matty, one of the suburbs we wanted to just have a bit of a look at today and just talk through our listeners about was that of Corio, which is located just north of Geelong. It's a growth corridor, and interested to get a couple of your high-level perspectives on what you make of that suburb.
Yeah, no, Matty. So obviously, I think we worked with a mutual client who bought there as an investment. So, when we were working with investors, sort of work macro, high level. Often we were sort of there because of budget, right? Like obviously, it's always budget drives. Like so, where we're looking for areas. I think for disclosure, it was like a $640,000 purchase for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, on a good parcel of land as well. So for us, I've been an advocate and fan of Geelong since, I've been sort of buying there since 2017 and a fan of it as well. So we were chatting before about Cryo's got obviously the Geelong Grammar, the pretty amazing schools in that area. You've obviously Geelong as a regional area is one of the if not the fastest growing regional in the country. So again, affordability. I know people of my age and stuff have moved down there, or for job opportunities are great. You've got hospitals, you've got Cotton On, TAC, WorkSafe, Deakin University, and even that northern corridor, there's a whole northwestern growth plan. So I think we were talking before about like Armstrong Creek and the southern side. So the north's going to get more housing as well. So these infill areas that historically stigmatized, and like it's a big suburb and there's pockets within pockets. So you've got to be careful where you can't just throw the dart at the board. You've got to
just buy anything. Yep.
No, you can't, mate. Like there's some really bad streets. To be honest, there's some really bad streets, like some low socioeconomic pockets, but there's some pockets you're like, wow, this, if I didn't know where I was, I wouldn't know, where I am, right? So that's our job, to get granular. But we start with the macro and the why and the how's that region doing, holistically and globally, what's its long term, and I think Victoria, Melbourne, you got to look at education, you got to look at families, like they're the people who are going to be immigrating who are immigrating here, and those things matter. It's got to have desirability and scarcity and things that are changing as well. So
that's good to know. And I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're needing to come to the city, I think it's an hour 15 on the train.
Yeah, so it's really commutable.
Accessible.
Yeah, it's quite fast rail and stuff. And there's one of my bosses was in Torquay, and he was on the train a couple of days a week, and he just people tapping away on the laptop all the way from Geelong into Melbourne. And, often, with work from home tech and stuff, you only probably come in a couple of days. To be honest, most of the suburbs of Melbourne, you're easily in a car for an hour or so and you're not that productive in traffic. So, it's really accessible now. And it's also lifestyle. Australia is a lifestyle capital. We love, by the water and Bernard Salt. I think the demographers talked about that, and, have the surf coast, Torquay and, sort of Jan Jac and Anglesea and the wineries of the Bellarine Peninsula on your doorsteps. It's a pretty amazing part of the world, right? So I get it. I think more and more that's just going to be the way Australia evolves and grows, right? We can't all be Melbourne, all be Sydney, even Brisbane. Brisbane's so expensive now as well. Like, it's realistically, you sort of got to make some choices. And you don't want to just be working to pay a mortgage. You want to get a bit of balance in life. So,
And look, I think most people maybe don't want to live in the city, and if there's infrastructure that enables people to connect and live a bit more remotely, I mean, what a pleasure. You can move out.
If you're on Atkinson Street in Geelong West, mate, you wouldn't know you're not in Melbourne, right? Like it's trendy, it's cool, it's hip, and like it's got the best bit of everything. That country town, but it's still got everything, you sort of the convenience you've probably grown up with, and if not more than what you grew up with. I grew up in Dingley, and I don't think there was a coffee shop in Dingley when I grew up, right? It was just paddocks and farms and chook runs and milk runs and stuff, and now it's obviously the home of the Mighty Hawks. And pardon, but things change, and it's a great little pocket. So if people don't know it, they wouldn't know what it is, because often you scoot on the ring road and you go right past it these days. You used to have to drive through Crow, the roadhouse and the way in there, but these days you scoot around it, and which again is a great thing for that area. So,
mate, that's why you help your clients. You get some good value out of that, which actually probably leads into our next question. Just keeping that in mind, you've been buying there for a number of years. Is it a buy, hold, or sell area at the moment?
I think it's definitely depends what your phase you're at, but I think it's definitely looking at a buy. Like it had some heady growth, obviously, when Ford left and the manufacturing sort of exited. It had a big run. It's probably really sort of stabilized, but I think I just look at what else opportunity cost. Where else will I put my money? Like there's been some big runs in the Brisbanes and the Perths, the Adelaides. Like Adelaide's more expensive than Melbourne now. Like some of the prices. Crazy. It is crazy, but absolutely. But like I think it's affordability, and you'd know that from the data. Affordable markets. And to give you another example, we missed a property, so we bought that one in Crow. We missed one in Newcombe. Newcombe's on the other side of Geelong, next to East Geelong, and there was 20 offers on the property. Despite Armageddon, this was only a few weeks ago. On my team, it was about 670.
20 offers.
20 offers. Yeah, Matty. So that doesn't make the paper. That's too much good news. But that just shows affordability. That was driven by investors, home buyers. It was a classic sort of 60s, 70s home in Geelong, 600-700 square meters. A grade pocket of Newcombe. But that just shows you there's still demand there. So it's not as bad as the media paints it out to be, because housing is essential, shelter is necessary. The affordable market is still holding up, but that's why even if we unpack the data, like the data sometimes gets washed in that, because there's markets within markets. The premium, the higher end, the 2 mil plus is struggling. Melbourne's medium is about 1 mil, but so that's where I said there's opportunity there. So I think this is the time you make your money. The Warren Buffetts of the world, and people quote him, but to actually action the quote in terms of the greedy, fearful. Like I know their business, Berkshire Hathaway's got a lot of cash. I'm sure they're ready to capitalize on the fear, uncertainty with Trump, the war, the world right now. So I think that they're ready to. That's how they make their money, right? They don't wait for it to turn. Like a lot of people do. They wait for social proof and they wait to chase their tail in the market. Like I'm sure I've seen so many people on the market at the moment who bought in 21, and that's the peak of the market. Melbourne was December 21. And they're trying to get it, and they're losing. They've got to lose money
instead of maybe come back to those levels.
Well, yeah, there are people waiting for that. They're priced out, but they're waiting for the bottom, the bell to ring, or they're waiting. So I think a lot of people just, again, it's an excuse. It's like it's cold in Melbourne at the moment. I won't go to the gym. It's too cold. Well, it doesn't. You got to at some point you just got to take action. So
no, that's it. You got to keep on moving, and maybe as part of our closing, if I call it closing arts, and as we wrap this segment up, someone's got their own portfolio and they're feeling a bit of that analysis paralysis, essentially from all these, unfortunately, negative headlines. Negative news sells better than any other news.
And our brains remember those more, right?
Yeah,
that's unfortunately. So we've really got to condition ourselves or separate the noise. Otherwise, you will get bogged down in it, right? And it doesn't. We get calls from clients who, like, just life, mate. Just it's sort of it's hard to miss it these days. Yeah.
Start questioning yourself. So maybe just on that, what are your parting words, just in terms of someone's stuck in a bit, they're looking to move forward, but they feel like they're just, there's a bit too much going on. They can't see through that noise.
It's just reach out to someone, whether that's your trusted advisor, you got a mentor, or someone who's been through it before. Like I surround myself with people who are, I'm 40, born in 85, like people who, like even with all the political stuff at the moment, 85, 87, there was a very similar thing that happened, right? We've gearing and CGT and stuff like that. Yes. So you look at history, but you surround yourself with smart people, whether that's your buyer's agent, whether it's your financial advisor, your broker, a family member, someone who's actually walked the walk, not just talks it. And, the person at the barbecue who talks about property that they never bought, those experts. So, I think that's
in the industry. That's it.
Mate, I think just surround yourself with good people, good mentors. I think that's the key thing. And ultimately, just, but you got to tailor the situation too, because I think general headlines sell, but they're obviously not to you, right? And there's people who are struggling and doing it tough, but there's also people, doing it well, right? If you've got an abundance mindset, there's opportunity right now. So just the way you're looking at it, I think that's the thing. The mindset's the key right now, because there's so much negativity. Pessimism's at an all-time high. You've sort of got to block that a bit, but get the right advice for you. Take stock of your situation, and then if it's a green light, I think it's a phenomenal time. So
go for it. No, thank you. Well, look, we're going to close it out on that note, and thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Hopefully, there's some fantastic insights that we've shared and piqued your interest maybe in one of the suburbs that we've talked through. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Matty.
If you would like to keep receiving property insights and golden nuggets from our guests, please do follow us, and you'll get the latest episode released on a fortnightly basis.